Hey y'all, and welcome back to another Wedding Wednesday. My name is Jane Corley with Pic Visions Media Arts and Photography. Every Wednesday we go over tips, tools, and techniques for planning your own wedding. Today we are talking about lodging. So first and foremost, when to block rooms for your wedding. You need to do it after the save the dates go out, when you have relatively a good idea about who is coming to the wedding and who is not coming to the wedding. Should be no later than 6 months into your engagement process. First, you need to think about the location of your wedding destination. Is it going to be a destination wedding? Someplace where people are going to have to travel in from out of town and need rooms for them to stay in during your wedding. Is it a popular town to travel to? So, are you getting married in North Georgia in the fall when the leaves are changing? Are you getting married on the beach in the summertime? Are you getting married in a college town on a game day weekend? Are you getting married when there's a convention or a concert in town? These are all reasons to block rooms for your guests. When you're blocking rooms for your guests, count the number of guests and divide it by 2. That's how many rooms that you will need. It's going to be a larger number, and if you have families, feel free to divide that number by 3 to get an accurate or a little closer to the room number that you're going to need to block. There are 2 types of blocking techniques to use when you're choosing lodging for your guests. First is going to be guaranteed or closed blocking, and the second is going to be courtesy blocking. Let's go over guaranteed blocking first. Guaranteed blocking is going to be holding a certain amount of rooms guaranteed for you and your guests. This is great if you know that you have a lot of out-of-town guests and you're going to need a significant amount of rooms, but it can also be a recipe for disaster if a lot of your guests don't show up or don't need rooms because they go for other accommodations. Guaranteed or closed block rooms also require a deposit and will require you to pay, maybe not a full amount, but a percentage amount for rooms that have not been booked when your wedding time comes. It can be a nightmare paying for additional rooms that are not used, and it can be pretty stressful, but it can also be a fantastic choice if you know that you're going to need rooms. 100% going to need rooms for your guests to come to your event. This is great for holiday weekends. This is great for really popular destinations. This is really great if you know that you're going to have a lot of people who are going to need rooms. With this type of room block, make sure to communicate with your guests clearly of where and how to book their rooms with this selected accommodation. Lastly, within this type of accommodation blocking, make sure to understand the attrition rate. The attrition rate is the percentage or the price that you're going to have to pay to this location if those blocked rooms are not used. So make sure to understand the attrition rate with the contract and the agreement that you make with this venue. Next is going to be courtesy block. Courtesy block is going to be a lot looser. You're not going to have to pay a deposit. You're not going to have to really worry about having to pay out more after the wedding is over with rooms that are unused. Courtesy block rooms will allow you to block between 10 and 20 rooms for your guest at a selected hotel, and then 30 to 90 days prior to your event, if those rooms are not booked, then they will go back to the hotel for them to use them for other guests. You can ask for more than 10 or 20 rooms, but I would actually suggest, instead of adding more rooms at one location, try to find at least 3 different rated rooms within that area. So find yourself a budget hotel, something that has at least 2 or 3 stars on a review site. Then find a mid-range hotel, something that has somewhere between 3 and 4 stars. Then find a luxury hotel between 4 and definitely 5 stars, something that has a lot of amenities and is kind of just a little more luxury for your guests to choose from. The price range between these hotels should be somewhere between $50 and $100 difference per night. Courtesy block rooms is probably one of the most popular ways to block your rooms if you're not wanting your guests to all stay at one place, or if your guests are wanting a variety of price ranges to choose from. Now let's move into the types of rooms to book. You need to have single couple suite. They may want, just a queen bed or even just a king bed or even a suite to choose from. Have a family option that has maybe 2 separate rooms in a suite, or just 2 queen beds, 2 double beds to choose from. And then the same option as well for couples who are willing to share accommodations together for the night of your wedding or even the wedding weekend. Get rooms on more than one floor of the hotel. You don't want your grandmother waking up in the middle of the night because your entire wedding party went out for a bash after the wedding and now are stumbling in and making a whole bunch of racket. Get different floors of the hotel booked so that you don't interfere with guests who are more family oriented or older variety, early morning versus all-nighters sort of thing. If you and your new husband or wife are staying at a hotel that has some of your blocked rooms, which I would totally suggest, do not stay on a floor with any other guests. You will thank me later. Stay on a higher floor or a lower floor from where all of your guests are staying, and let the hotel know that you and your husband or you and your new wife are going to be staying at that hotel with your guests the night of your wedding. They will accommodate and maybe even, put a bottle of wine in your room, or just make sure that you get a honeymoon or a night after your wedding type of room. So, tips for choosing the location of your lodging. Try to find something that is within 10 to 15 miles away, if not closer, to the wedding venue or the ceremony venue. Try to find a place that has a few attractions close by, something for maybe late night eats, something for, kids, a museum or a zoo, something for parents to fill the time either the day of the wedding or the day after the wedding if they choose to stay, something that has maybe brunch or breakfast accommodations, and gives an option for your guests to have something to do around their lodging location. Now, who to talk to and how to book. Talk to the group sales associate or a manager for that lodging establishment. Questions to ask. Ask about group rates, fees, and taxes. Ask about courtesy booking versus guaranteed booking. Ask about parking, Wi-Fi, a bar on site, a restaurant on site, free breakfast, all the things that you would look for when you are going to a place out of town and you want to have a few amenities at the hotel that you book. It is important to inquire about check-in and check-out times, mostly check-in times, because if you are getting married at 2 o'clock on a Saturday, but check-in time for that hotel is not until 3, your guests will have to get ready in the hotel bathroom or in a rest stop or before they even get into their car to travel to your event, only to drop their stuff off at the hotel and then have to go to your event. Or maybe not even be able to drop their stuff off at the hotel and have to drop their stuff off after the wedding. And you need to ask about check-in, check-out times because you want to make the day of your wedding for your guests as smooth as possible. So, trust me, you are not the first person to want to ask this, but can we check in early? Can my guests check in or at least just drop their bags off to their rooms or have some place to get ready in quickly before they come to our event? Most of the time, the hotels will say, yeah, that's totally fine. We may have a few, we may need to drop some towels off, or we may still be working on, changing the linens. But if your guests just need a place to put their stuff down, take a shower, maybe curl their hair real quick and get their makeup done, give them a space to do that in privacy. And most of the time, hotels and accommodation locations will allow that to happen. Next to ask, what is the minimum stay requirement? Some hotels will not allow guests to stay less than 2 or 3 nights on popular holiday weekends because they know that they can get that money from somebody else who's willing to stay a longer time. So if you're having trouble finding a minimum stay requirement, or people who are only wanting to stay one night and going to incur fees or have issues with booking, choose a different hotel, or at least communicate to your guests that if you want to stay at this lodging location, you're going to have to stay at least 2 nights. So when you're asking about courtesy blocking versus guaranteed blocking, talk to the representative at the hotel or the lodging accommodations. How long do we have to let you know how many rooms that we need? Because if you have all of your guests booked at their hotels 30 days prior, you can call up that accommodations location and tell them, I know I guaranteed booked 40 rooms, but I only need 20 or 30 rooms. Can we go ahead and sell those rooms back to you? Same with courtesy blocking. If you find that all of the courtesy blocking rooms that have filled up and you need more at that accommodation, having all of the rooms that you blocked with that accommodation is exactly what they want. So if you can guarantee them more rooms, they'll give them to you. So just ask, how long do we have before our event to let you know how many rooms that we need or how many rooms that we don't need out of the rooms that we've blocked. I did touch on amenities a little bit earlier, but do make sure to understand the shuttle service if they have one, bar service if they have one, Wi-Fi, restaurant, anything that they provide to their guests, just so you can have that information to translate to your guests on your wedding website, or if they ask about that information when they're preparing to book. So I know we already talked about you and your future spouse staying at the hotel. Sometimes if you book 25, 30 rooms with a hotel, they will actually give you a free room. So ask them about free room ratios when you're talking about, okay, if I book 20, 25 rooms, can we maybe get our night of room for free? Or if we book 30 rooms, can we get a free room? Just ask them for clarity if they have free room exchange for you bringing them business. And if they say no to any of these topics, y'all, it doesn't cost you anything to ask. It doesn't cost you anything to inquire about these extra amenities, extra services, extra favors, because they're used to it. Every bride, every groom, every mother of the bride, whoever calls about room blocking, they get the same questions. And it's not going to cost you anything extra just to ask. Next, are you doing welcome bag deliveries? A lot of couples do welcome bag deliveries for their guests, but do understand that it's going to have a cost attached to it. It's somewhere between $2 and $5 to deliver a bag to somebody's room and set it up for a welcome package. But if you're booking a whole mess of rooms and bringing that establishment a lot of business, sometimes they'll waive the fee. So just ask, because it's free to ask. You will need to drop them off to the hotel 2 to 3 days beforehand, and make sure, if you're going to include a welcome bag, make sure to include what's called a welcome packet. Something that has your ceremony location, the rehearsal dinner location if you're inviting them there, information about the timeline of the day, information about things that they can do while they're waiting. Just have as much information for your guests in this welcome packet as possible. And if you even want to include like a handwritten note to your guests when they have your welcome package, that's also a nice little touch. So prior to contacting the hotel, make your lists. Now that we have all of our information about what we need to have and need to know and want to have, make your lists. What's important to you? What can you maybe do without? What do you think that your guests will need for accommodations? What types of hotels will you like to book? What are your counts for out-of-town guests? How many roundabout rooms will you need? I know that we've just sent out save the dates. People aren't really committing, but as you're going through your process, you're really going to kind of get a feel for people, and people that you thought were really reliable, I'm sorry, you're going to find out are not reliable. These people are, just don't get mad. Just understand that some people are a little flaky. They really do love you and they really want to come to your event, but they're going to wait until the last minute to let you know. Get prepared for negotiations. Ask about waiving fees. Ask for clarity. Ask for information on information. Don't be rude. It's a negotiation. So use your kindness, use your thank yous, your please, and your yes ma'ams. This will get you a lot further than why. Why won't you do this? Why won't you provide this for us? If you can work with them and give and take, and they find you to be a nice person, they're more willing to waive fees Niceness, politeness, it goes a long way these days, guys. So just use it. A few tips: do not give away your budget. Do not tell them, okay, I've got this much money for hotel blocking, because that's where they're going to start. Talk to them about maybe a few more budget friendly options or other ways that we can go about this to satisfy the needs of our guests. Don't give away your budget too early, because then they'll know how deep your pockets are. And if you're wanting to have a little bit more money, maybe for a champagne toast or for a few more decorations or for custom made bow ties for your grooms, this is where you make that money back in these little dollars and cents that you can save in your budget. So just don't give away your budget immediately to these lodging locations. When you're negotiating your options, write it all down, because you're going to get a contract or an agreement from these people, and you need to make sure that everything that you've talked about is within that contract and agreement. Be clear about cancellation policies, because I hope that you don't have to cancel your event for any reason, but sometimes it's out of your control. Natural disasters or death in the family, or just something that holds the whole process up and you do have to cancel. I've talked about this with every other vendor, and I hate to jinx it, but talk to them about cancellation policies just so you have that information just in case. Talk to them about cutoff dates. How long do we have to let you know if we need to add or subtract rooms? Ask what your guests should mention when they are booking their rooms for the hotel. Do I need to let you know I am in the Corley wedding and I am the grandmother and it's on this date? Or do I need to let them know this is the product code, or the, Jane and Jay Corley wedding 2019? Do I need to have that key phrase for booking as kind of almost a password to get into that blocked room rate? And my final tip for this section is going to be, if they are not cooperating, do not use them. If they are not people who are willing to work with you, they're not people who are seeming like they want your business, choose a different lodging location. Because if they're not willing to talk to you and give you the time of day for you to bring them a significant amount of business, they are going to be rude and unaccommodating to your guests. And the last thing that you want your guests to have as they're checking out of the hotel after your wedding day, the last look in your wedding weekend or just their stay for your wedding, is that they had a miserable time at their hotel and they hate everything. You don't want that to happen. So if they're not willing to work with you as a hotel establishment, then don't be willing to work with them. I'm not saying be nasty, be rude. I'm saying choose somebody else, because you don't want that attitude to translate to your guests. And finally, other options. I know that we just went over hotels, we just went over all this blah 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 lodging, but there is no shame in the technology world that we live in to forward your guests to VRBO, to forward them to Airbnb, to translate them to rental properties that are local to the place that you're getting married. And I'll use this as an example. For our wedding, we were actually getting married on Memorial Day weekend, which I'll tell you that whole story later at another time, I promise, ladies and gentlemen. But our venue was actually hosted by a rental agency. So if our guests booked with that rental agency and they stayed more than 3 nights, they got a 4th night for free at select locations. But because of that fact, they were able to also provide to us a lot of other properties early on in our engagement period to provide to our guests. And being able to say, oh, well, we're with the Corley wedding on Memorial Day weekend, they were able to get within that rental blocking. And since there was only like 3 or 4 hotels that were on the island that we booked with, having those private rental agencies that we could forward to our guests that were local on the island really made it fun for people to stay, because people got these little bungalows on these little side streets, and Everything was in walking distance because they were able to pick and choose rental places like houses, or even just stay at the budget hotel or the nicer hotel for this rate. But we didn't have to block rooms. We were actually able to just forward them to all the information of where they could stay and let them do what they wanted to do. And because there was VRBO and Airbnb options on the island as well, they were also able to go that route. So don't take those out of the equation. Also, Groupon. I know it sounds a little shady, but using Groupon for maybe like your wedding party. Your wedding party can stay in a big house or in a big hotel suite, for your parents, for your grandparents. Just finding those discounted rates if that's something that you are concerned with. Also using discounted hotel and lodging websites. If you find a really good deal, put that information on your website. Put that information and forward that information to your guests. Lastly, you'll need to spread the word. Spread the word about the lodging availability for your guests. You'll need to put it on your website, like we said about 100 times in this video, and you'll need to find your family's yentas, for lack of a better term. Find the people who are most connected with people in your family, like maybe an aunt who is well connected, or your mom who's well connected, or a cousin who's well connected. Find somebody who is well connected with your family environment, because people are going to go and ask them first and foremost, do you know anything about lodging? Do you know anything about where we should stay? Oh, check out the website. They have a website set up. Or, here's the information, let me text it to you and email you. This isn't going to eliminate people bombarding you with questions about lodging, but having the information to just say, hey, check out my website, it's here, and I'll send you the link. Or check out the save the date that we sent you, it's on the save the date. So just inform your guests, and it's going to get old telling your guests the same thing over and over and over again. So the more people that you can have spread the word about your event, the better. So I do hope that this video was helpful on how to choose and coordinate lodging for you and your guests for the event. Until next time, Jane Corley, Pick Visions, Media Arts and Photography. Like this video if you learned something new, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you can be notified every time a new video is uploaded every Wednesday. See you next week, guys.